It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness. And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live. Caravans of mass youth rampage through city streets at all times of the day. There are ATVs, motorbikes. They travel pretty well. Entire neighborhoods are now under emergency curfews. Just this past weekend, gunfire went through, and you saw that, the Navy Yard. I saw it this morning. They saw that they fought back against law. See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night. And they're not going to be fighting back long, because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, they love to spit in the face of the police as the police are standing up there in uniform. They're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face, and then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit, and they can hit real hard. It's a disgusting thing. I've watched that for years, for 4 years. I've watched them. The police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any search. So and you can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there, and people are spitting in their face, and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left city council adopted no cash bail. By the way, every place in the country where you have no cash bail,
Shalom, Shalom Israel. I am the brother Yowana from the Great Millstone, Arizona camp, coming back at y'all with Lord's will, another edifying lesson. First and foremost, as always, before I start, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechachorash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers. Shalom to you brothers pushing and teaching this truth across the four winds of this earth. And as always, peace, blessings, and many salutations be to you sincere Akyam Wa'akwath, you brothers, along with you few sisters, who are given all diligence in these last days. Right, through the mercy and grace of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through his only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, coming back with another sit-down lesson. And as you can see from the beginning clip at the start of this lesson, okay, Donald Trump was pretty much describing how he's going to come down, a lot harder, okay, because, the police are being disrespected, or being, spit on, and they're not able to fight back against, protesters and whatnot. You see, but what did he say? He said, time is coming where they're going to be able to do whatever the hell they want. They're not going to, he said, you spit and we hit. Okay, we ultimately know, through prophecy, that we're coming into a time known as Jacob's trouble, okay, which entails, great persecution, towards us Israelites, which consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, okay, but also especially those of us of Israel who are continuing to believe in Yahweh Shem Yahshua, man, who have faith in these times. All right, that our persecution is going to come heavily, upon us as well. Okay, Jacob's trouble. Shalom, Shalom Israel. I am the brother Yowana from the Great Millstone, Arizona camp, coming back at y'all with Lord's will, another edifying lesson. First and foremost, as always, before we start, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachachorash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers. Shalom to you brothers pushing and teaching this truth across the four winds of this earth. And as always, peace, blessings, and many salutations be to you sincere Akyama Akwa, to you brothers, along with you few sisters, who are given all diligence in these last days. Right, through the mercy and grace of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through His only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, coming back with another sit-down lesson. I'm going to start right here in Revelation chapter 12 and verse 12. And it reads, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." Now we understand, that this devil that's referenced here in this verse is not talking about some mythical, creature that ultimately, lives underground. Okay, this is talking about a man. Okay, and when we go here in the blue letter, right, to the Greek word for this word devil, it's Strong's G1228, and it's the Greek word diablos. Diablos, and it says prone to slander, slanderous, accusing falsely, a calumniator, false accuser, slanderer. Here's the point: metaphor applied to a man who, by opposing the cause of the Most High, may be said to act the part of the devil or to side with him. All right, and that man that we understand, that is the devil according to the Bible, right, is known as the nation of Edom, right, the Edomites, which is a so-called white man. All right, and at the end of the day, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai has sent prophets, right, to warn, okay, of the times that are coming, right, to warn of the great tribulation that's coming, pursuing to Daniel 12 and 1. Okay, a time of great trouble that has never before been seen. And in this time of great trouble, we're going to see this man that's known as the devil in the Bible to come down having great wrath, because he knows that he's running out of time. All right, and this is, as we're seeing, as we seen in that video with Donald Trump, what did he say, man? He was talking about Jakes. They want to fight back, and you see, until you hit them real hard, they're able to, spit in the face of police, and the police don't do nothing. They might get the tear gas and rubber bullets, but he's talking about hitting them real hard. You see, he said here soon, they're going to be able to, the police and, Donald Trump has now sent more than 800, National Guard, troops to D.C., which, it's said that that's going to take place throughout all different states, right here in Babylon the Great. Right, they're gonna send out more, military troops, okay, to pretty much regulate, okay, because Donald Trump had made a statement saying that in D.C., the crime, or the reason why he's sending the military out there is because of the crime rate is increasing, which, is false. According to statistics and even the news, they're saying that's a very, I guess it's a very, that's the word I'm looking for. Basically, there's no truth to that claim, because according to statistics, the crime rate has been getting lower, right? But according to Donald Trump, the crime rate is heightening. That's why that's what gave him the reason to send, National Guard out there. But nevertheless, we understand we're coming into this time in which this man, right, that people see as, benevolent, right, as peaceful, right, as great, he's going to show his horns. Okay, he's going to show his horns, he's going to show his tail, and he's going to, ultimately come down heavy upon you Israelites, man. All the, this coming into this year, these past few months, ICE, and these different raids and deportations that they've been doing to a lot of our people, of northern tribes, right? We understand that, that was happening to Northern Kingdom, but, those raids and that great oppression was not only going to be aimed towards the northern tribes, but also was going to trickle down to the Southern Kingdom as well. Okay, to you so-called Negroes, right? It's not just going to be, so-called Mexicans getting deported and being stripped from their homes. ICE, they were going to, schools and hospitals and churches and funerals, ultimately taking a lot of, Issacharites and cuffing them up in front of their families, going to their jobs while they were at work, and then cuffing them up and deporting them. So that's not only going to happen to, the so-called Mexicans. All right, it's going to happen, to us as well. All right, and that's part of Esau, Edom coming down, having great wrath. So I'm going to go here in 2nd Ezra 16 and verse 68. It says, "For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you, and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols." See that burning wrath of a great multitude is what Esau, Edom coming in like a flood. All right, and Donald Trump's speaking the way he's speaking. All right, he doesn't care anymore. They're not hiding what their intentions are, and really they've never cared about you Israelites. And that's pursuing the Lamentations, the 4th chapter, right? We have watched in vain for a nation that cannot save. You see, you Israelites think that you can still rely on the government, right, and still trust these Edomites as though they have your best interests at heart, but they truly do not. Okay, and they're going to take away certain of us. All right, and it says, "And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden under foot." So even if you consent unto them, right, and bow down and do what they say, they're eventually going to have you, as a laughing stock. All right, they're going to be laughing at you, man, because here it is, you bow down to them, and that's what they wanted in the first place, but they never cared about you, man. All right. So a lot of you Israelites that ultimately consent unto these devils, you're going to be had in derision and in reproach, and eventually trodden underfoot. It says, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. They shall be like madmen, sparing none." See, this is the times we're coming into. These devils are going to be, they're going to be likened unto madmen. They're not going to be sparing anybody. The Lord's going to put that same spirit in these devils that was in them before. Okay, how they didn't have no mercy towards the young, nor reverence the old, to the old, roughly paraphrasing. They don't care how young you are or how old you are. They're going to greatly oppress you. All right, and this is the times we're coming into, man, a time of great persecution, right, which is going to be upon those that fear the Lord, which ultimately, is all Israel, man. Okay, all of Israel is going to feel, that wrath coming from these devils. It says, "Then they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses." Right? See, they're going to waste and take away your goods, and they're going to cast a lot of us out of our houses, man. All right, because now they legally have the ability to go inside your house without a warrant. They basically have the ability, which I believe they're trying to take away habeas corpus, which it was speculated, the Trump administration was trying to, get rid of that, which pretty much gives you the ability to fight for yourself in court, against an unlawful, an unlawful arrest, roughly, going into that law, roughly paraphrasing that law, which matter of fact, let me just get it real quick. Right. It says habeas corpus is a fundamental legal right rooted in both English common law and the U.S. Constitution that protects individuals from unlawful imprisonment. It allows a detained person to challenge the legality of their detention by compelling the detaining authority to bring them before a court to justify the imprisonment. So imagine they take away habeas corpus. You're not going to be able to fight, against an unlawful imprisonment, an unlawful charge. You're just going to be charged, and whatever they charge you with, you're just going to have to go through. You're just going to have to be arrested. Okay, and this goes right into Revelation 2 and 10. See, we're living in a time in which a lot of these prophecies that we read and that are very repetitive, we're going to ultimately be fulfilling them. And this is one right here, that we're coming into very soon. And this is Revelation chapter 2 and verse 10. "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." See that? So that devil, once again, which is a so-called white man, is an actual man, is going to cast some of us into prison, right? Into different facilities like Alligator Alcatraz, okay, the different re-education centers, FEMA camps. All right, and the reason we're going to be thrown in there is what, as the Lord's saying, that we may be tried, that we're going to be tested, okay, and having tribulation 10 days. Now, that could be a literal 10 days, but we understand the number 10 is the number of completion. So it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month, 2 months, 3 months. However, the Lord, he wants to do it, but what's the main point is to be faithful unto death. And Lord willing, we will receive a crown of life. Okay, these are the times in which we have to truly be faithful unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay, because, we're all going to be greatly tried, but we have to, maintain, our faith and our confidence in the Lord in the midst of these trials. All right, because this devil, the Lord is going to put the spirit on this devil to come down, and he's going to be like a madman. He's not going to be sparing anybody. Some of us that do get, apprehended and thrown into these prisons or these camps, we have to remember that this is all part, of the path. Okay, this is all part of the faith. This is 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 12. It says, yea, and all that will live godly in Hamashiach Yahushai shall suffer persecution. See that? If you're living godly in the Lord, right, you're ultimately going to what? Suffer persecution. That's part of this path. But what did Yahushai say concerning suffering persecution? This is Matthew chapter 5 and verse 10. And these are the words of our Lord Yahushai. And it reads, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. And that's what's ultimately going to happen. Our names, our reputation is going to be, demonized, right? Which these devils are already doing that, but much more in the days ahead. They're going to liken us to be the problem. They're going to say that we're terrorists. They're going to say that we're evil. They're going to say that, we, pretty much are just these, criminals, right? That have no intention but, to do, but to do evil, and, pretty much they're going to paint us to be, evil individuals. I'll just say that for lack of better words, and forgive me. Okay, because this is self-explanatory, this is something that we have to be ready for, man, to be hated of all men. Even some of our own family, man, is going to hate us. Even our own family in the world is going to hate us, man. Our own friends or people that we used to call friends are going to, ultimately turn against us, man. Okay, but at the end of the day, that's all a part, right, of this path, right? This path leading to salvation. You're going to have to suffer straits. You're going to have to suffer difficulties. Okay, it says, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. See that? So, we are supposed to rejoice when men speak evil of us and demonize us and, want to persecute us, because at the end of the day, Lord willing, we're the elect, man. We're ultimately suffering for righteousness' sake. Okay, you see, and the prophets that came before us and the believers of the Lord, they were persecuted in the same way. They were hated. They were mocked. They were looked down upon. This is Hebrews chapter 11. Right? Bear with me. Hebrews 11 and 36. It says, and others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover of bonds and imprisonment. So this is what our forefathers, when you go into this chapter, it goes into our forefathers that have faith. Okay? And these are the things that they went through, man. Cruel, mockings and scourgings, by being beat with whips, moreover of bonds and imprisonment, being chained and locked up. It says they were stoned, they were sawn asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. See that? Stoned, being sawn in half, right? They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. Yeah, received not the promise, because it wasn't time. In their time, it wasn't time for the promise to be given. The scriptures talk about in 2nd Ezra, the 4th chapter, how the Lord has numbered the times. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick. I don't want to butcher it. All right, this is bear with me. Slack you. believe it's... Let me see if I can find it. I passed right by it. 2nd Ezra 4:37. By measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and doeth not move nor steer them until the said measure be fulfilled. So everything has to be fulfilled within a chronological order and prophecy. So in the time of our forefathers, man, the time when they were going through those cruel mockings and imprisonments and being stoned, it wasn't time for the kingdom of heaven to be given, right? But that time is near, okay, in which the kingdom of heaven is going to be given to the Lord's elect, man. Okay, that salvation is going to come. You see? But nevertheless, you know, our forefathers, they went through these things. Okay, and just as they went through it, we have to go through it as well. Right, and let's end it off here, because the point is made. This is the book of James, chapter 5, and verse 10. It says, Take my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender, of tender mercy. See, so just like the story of Job, man, you know, Job lost everything. He was greatly afflicted. He was greatly tried, but he maintained his ways before the Lord. He kept the faith, held fast his integrity, and he was blessed more at the end than he was at the beginning. Okay, he was blessed twofold, and that's really the, you know, the story of the elect. Okay, we're going to go, you know, Lord willing, with the elect, but we're going to go through different things. We're going to lose. We're going to suffer. We're going to be afflicted. But at the end of the day, we keep our faith and maintain throughout it all. The Lord is going to The Lord is going to bless us greatly in the end. All right, and that's the faith that we have. All right, as long as we continue to endure, you know. But Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, man, to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Lord willing, it was, you know, informative. Again, this is a time in which, you know, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is truly going to come down, having great wrath. You know, so this is a time to get our minds right, and get ready, right, for the said perils that are to befall America, aka Babylon the Great. You see, so again, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying to you, sincere Akim Akwath. Of course, as always, before I end off, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachach. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers. Until next time, Lord's will, I say shalom.